Welcome to Magnificent Living Today. Are you living a life of optimal health? Do you want to make changes in your life? Do you need help setting and achieving goals? Are you ready to reform and reshape your mind, body, and spirit? Are you looking for more balance in your life? Many of us are thinking about starting a better lifestyle program, both for ourselves and or our family. We all know how difficult it can be to motivate others when we ourselves are not motivated. Sometimes we all need a little help reaching our goals, and that's why Magnificent Living Today is here for you.
Welcome to Magnificent Living Today. I'm here with Dawn Harvey from Unlock Publishing, and we're going to have a great show. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. Be proactive versus reactive. Affirmation. No person, place, or thing has power over me. I realize that it's not what happens, but how I choose to respond that is important. Welcome back. I'm here with Dawn Harvey, and we're going to talk about Unlock Publishing. So tell me about your company.
Unlock Publishing House started in 2006, and we are extremely excited about it. We got an opportunity to initially publish my own book in 2006. And what I found is that the publishing industry was much like the music industry. It was very expensive, and you needed a lot of studio time, you know, between the editors, the graphic design artists, things like that. And so I decided to do something more all-inclusive to give authors a better access to resources without having to do the research, without an astronomical fee, and being able to get everything in one place, like a one-stop shop.
So do you have a specific type of book that your publishing company publishes, or do you just publish overall books for people?
We do motivational, inspirational books. We do books for ministries, children's books, coffee table books, things like that, things that uplift people.
So what was your book about?
My personal testimony. I had cancer at 15 and just really wanted to share my story to maybe encourage someone else who was going through something like that.
So it's about your life itself, about your experience with the cancer.
Yes, my experience with the cancer and how I overcame it, how I really focused on not letting it change my personality, affect me in a negative way, because initially it did. And so I had to figure out how to recover emotionally and get through that.
Cancer at 15, that's a very hard thing. And for a 15-year-old to even have the introspect to go back and say, okay, how am I going to be good through this process? Because cancer is a hard process. I've seen people go through it, and I've seen it change people sometimes for the worse. Sometimes they end up in just the worst space. And even after the cancer is over, every single thing that happens to them, every time they cough, every time they get a fever, they think, oh my God, the cancer's come back. So I know it's a thing that never, ever, ever leaves you. So it's a beautiful thing to have testimony to share with other people.
Right, and that is very true. The first episode with cancer, I had surgery. And then about 2 or 3 months later, it came back in my lung. And by the time I got to Duke University Medical Center, it had spread to my brain. So it did take me a while not to live in fear, because I had already experienced it in 3 organs. And every time they said, you're not going to make it, you know, the kind of cancer you have grows too fast, we just expect you to stop talking. I never stopped talking. And so went into remission miraculously, and found myself trying to outrun cancer. You know, I had to do everything right now. I had to get checkups initially bi-weekly, then monthly, then every 2 months, and then once a year, and was just released about 2 years ago completely, no checkups, nothing.
Fantastic.
But yeah, I did have to retrain my thought process so that I wouldn't mentally feel like every time something happened, it must be the cancer coming back. You know, and I didn't even tell people about it until 2006.
Wow, so you just kept that to yourself?
Because I felt like if I said it, it would be there. You know, and so I had to get the courage to say it happened to me. I'm healed, and I can move forward. Yeah,
and you have to be very careful about. We talked about this, the things that come out of your mouth.
Yes.
Because it's very easy to get into a negative thought pattern, which then turns into a negative talking pattern. So the things come out of your mouth. I don't feel good. Life isn't good. One of the things I was talking to a friend about yesterday is he was talking about being broke. And I said to him, you know, success doesn't have a dollar sign on it. So anyone can find success, but it's only people who have empty hearts and empty heads that can't go further.
Right.
Because broke is only a temporary situation. Broken can be permanent.
Yeah.
So you can learn how to be broke without being broken. It's so
Right.
important.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times in our life, a lot of situations come up where we are broken. And if you allow yourself to be broken for too long, you might be broken forever, or you might break into pieces. And I think that's the fear that I always have when I go through a hard time, and that's what my book is about, is my experience. Every time I had a hard time, I stopped and I said, okay, how can I mentally get through this? And if I can mentally get through it and start to talk myself through it. Because there's times when my faith has been tried, and I think, okay, how can I remain faithful?
Right.
And faithful just is releasing the fear, because when I'm in a state of fear, my faith is jacked up.
Right.
I can't flow
Right.
in fear.
Right.
And fear is a 4-letter word that I don't need to be afraid of.
Right. And we're excited about your book. We're excited about your book because people receive information differently. I think we are absolutely in an age where people need something to lift them up. We see the newspapers, everything that's happening on television. And so people need something encouraging. And I like it because based on our conversations, what I've heard you say and the videos that I've seen, it's not what you heard about, it's what you've lived.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. What is your favorite, if you were going to pick maybe your top 3 topics? First, tell us the name of your book.
The book is 21 Steps to Magnificent Living, and it's about staying in a state of flow. And our flow is often disrupted by lights, by people, by other people's attitudes. So it's learning how to get back in your own head and say, wait a minute, pause. So my very first step is about learning how to be proactive versus reactive. Because a lot of people, they just react to everything that happens around them. But proactivity suggests that you stop, pause, breathe, and say, okay, how can I get through this and make it a good situation? Because there's good in everything. You can always find the good. So I love the fact that learning how to breathe, pause, and learning how, because reaction is, boom. Proactivity is pause, breathe, and then flow into the next part of your life. What's going to happen next? I love the faithful part, because a lot of people say they are faithful or they're religious, but they're not faithful.
Yeah.
And we talked about that.
Yeah, the first time you said that, I just fell in love with it because there is a difference. Tell them what the difference is.
Well, in religion, you can read from the Bible, you can go to church, you can listen to the word, but does the word penetrate your head and your heart?
Right.
Because that's where faith comes from.
Right.
When you have that in you, when you live it, when you walk it, then you're faithful.
Right.
When you read it, when you hear it, you're only religious.
Right.
And I think that the most important thing for people to learn is how to walk through their faith.
Right.
To be okay with the times when things don't go perfectly, because not everything's going to go your way.
Right.
Every lesson is there for you to learn, and you can't judge the lesson. A lot of people say, well, I needed to learn this today, and this is what I wanted, and this is what you wanted and what you need often are two different things.
Absolutely.
And so people will go through a whole spiel about what they wanted, what they thought their day was going to be like.
Right.
And I said, but that's not what your day is. So pause, stop, be faithful that everything is going to work out in your favor. Things are going to be okay, but they're going to be okay the way they're supposed to be today.
Right.
Not the way you had anticipated, not the way you wanted oftentimes.
Right. So you're saying to them that you can't control what's happening all the time, but you can control how you deal with what's happening.
Exactly right.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think that another one of the things I like is being patient, because people don't realize life happens in steps, and sometimes you take big steps, sometimes you take small steps. A few months before I met you, I had a day where it just felt like everything was standing still, and I said, God, I want more. I need things to move. And the second that I said it, the second that I said, God, I need things to move, things started happening. You know, I got a new job in a new company, and I was like, wow, this is really great. And I had, out of nowhere, a guy who I knew 30 years ago called me up and said, I know you're a really great person. I really want to put you in this position. Would you come and work with us? And I thought, wow, I just had said everything was stagnant, nothing's moving. And boom, something started to move.
Wow.
When I met your friend Angela, I was simply talking to her about my life. I didn't say, I'm looking for a publisher. I said, you know, this is what I'm working on.
Right.
And she said, I have the perfect person for you.
Wow.
And
great words.
Yeah, great words.
They have life, yeah.
And what happened was, you came, and we had one of the best conversations that I can remember having in a long time. So I knew right situation, right person, right time. I mean, I knew this was the time to release my information, but I kind of put it on the back burner and said,
Right.
I'll be faithful
Right.
that the right situation will come up, because you can take your work and put it in the wrong situation because you're in a hurry.
Right.
And so that's what being patient is about. I knew that at some point somebody would come to me and understand what I was saying. Because a lot of people come to you and they say, okay, this is a good idea, but I don't really understand this.
Right.
And for me, that wasn't going to work, because I needed your input. I needed somebody to walk me through
Right.
and show me what was missing in the book.
Right.
Because I know what I think, I know what I feel. How do I express that so other people can hear it, understand it, and then take it into their spirit?
Right.
And
right.
so it's important sometimes to have that second person to sit there, listen to your thought, and say, you know what? Even you saying, I think this is a wonderful idea.
Right.
And I said to you, I'm not going to pick this up for a month. I'm going to pick it up. And the second I went home, I went and I got in my information and I started working because I'm excited.
Yeah.
And I'm excited because you get it.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I believe that what you're going to do adds value to people's life. That's the most important thing we can do, is add value to someone's life. And I heard your heart, not just what was in your head, not just something that you read, but your heart was in every comment you made. When you were talking about being a giver, and you were talking about being a cheerful giver. Talk about that a little bit, because that was awesome as well.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, they give and they give and they give, and all they do the whole time they're giving, inside of their head, they're going, I'm giving you this and I'm doing this for that person. That's not giving. That's grudgeful giving.
Yeah.
And grudgeful giving, it hurts you.
Yeah.
It's not good for the other person, because the other person thinks, oh, she's doing this for me because she wanted to do it. They're happy, they're feeling good about it. Meanwhile, you end up with resentment because you're giving what you don't want to give, or sometimes what you don't have to give.
Yeah.
A lot of times with parents, I hear them talk about their children and they say, oh, now my bank account is empty and blah, 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 blah. And I said, just pause. I said, did your kid really need that cell phone? Did they really need that computer? Is that going to change the course of their life?
Right.
But it changed the course of your day and your life and your bank account.
Right.
So you gave something that you didn't have to give. And now you're mad about it.
Right.
The giving is about, I see a need. Someone has a need, something that I can contribute, that I have, that I can give cheerfully.
Right.
And when I give cheerfully, I feel good, you feel good, and the whole giving situation is a winning situation.
Right, right.
One of the things I talk to people about is see the benefit in every situation, because in every situation, every single situation, there is a benefit.
Right.
It may not be what you were looking for in the situation, but there's a benefit. And even if the benefit is as small as, I'll never do that again, there's a benefit.
Huge lesson.
Huge.
Never do that again is probably one of the most important lessons we ever have, because it stops us from repeating something that could be detrimental to us or wasn't healthy for us. So that's a huge lesson, even though people minimize it because they didn't get something tangible out of it. So that's awesome.
But they're looking at the other side of the picture. The other side of the picture is I didn't get, I think, what I wanted. But what you've got probably is more important, because it's what you needed today.
Right.
Learning how to be prepared for situations. I remember we were talking and I said, someone called me up from Japan and said, we want you to come to Japan and choreograph a piece for this show. And I had never choreographed anything in my entire life but an aerobics class.
Right.
Which was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's all I knew.
Right.
So I went online, I watched all of the performances I could find, I learned how to count the music, break it down, put the choreography together, but I didn't say no when they called me. I said, hey, I can handle that. And then I went back and I prepared myself for the situation.
Awesome.
I believe in life, our goal every day should be always trying to learn something new, because everything that I have in my toolkit, one day someone's going to ask me something, I'm like, you know what? That's in my skill set. I can do that.
Right.
Some things are not in my skill set. I couldn't publish a book.
Right.
So instead of me trying to publish the book myself, I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll wait for the right situation. I'm not saying put it on the back burner forever.
Right.
Because what you have to do is you have to talk it into your existence.
Right.
When I met your friend, I was just talking what I was talking into my existence. And the words that come out of your mouth become your reality.
They do.
I'll say that again. The words that come out of your
Yes.
mouth become your reality. So when I say to someone, I wrote a book. I wrote a book. It's the truth. Even if the book was never printed, I wrote the book.
Right.
So you have to learn how to speak positively into your situation. Find love and success where you are at this moment.
At this moment.
Because it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
And all we have is this moment. What happened yesterday is gone, and what's going to come next, I don't know. But all I know is at this moment, I'm enjoying the conversation that I'm having with you. And at this moment, I know we're going to build something beautiful, because it's in our spirit.
Yeah.
And it's what's meant for us at this moment.
At this moment.
So when I met you, I said, this is the right time, right moment, right place. Let's do this. I can't even put my information down. I can't stay off the computer.
It's awesome. When I got your when I started seeing the communication, because I knew you were, planning some other things, I said, "Oh, he's on fire." So I was excited about that because that just confirms that it's time.
Yeah.
That it's time, and somebody's waiting for it. They may have heard other things by other people, read other books, but it still hasn't quite resonated for them. And a lot of times they read things, but they don't internalize them.
Yeah. And for me, the 21 steps were something that I developed over time. Initially, I got invited to South Africa to do a keynote speech. My very first one, 1991. The speech was going to be in 1992. And I just started researching, and I was writing things and reading things, and I realized, you know what? This isn't what I want to say. So I threw everything away, and I thought, okay, if I wanted to be a better person for me today, what are the things that I need to do?
Wow.
And so I started going into the things like learning how to be forgiving, because so often we live in a state of, I'm so mad at myself because, and when you're mad at yourself, it shows on your face, it shows in your spirit. You don't receive at the same level
Right.
because there's this energy around you that's angry. And when
Yeah.
you have that angry exterior, people aren't drawn to that. So if no one's going to walk up to you and say, gee, you look angry today. How
Right,
are you?
right.
Can we have a conversation?
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen. And I find that when I'm in flow, that's when people stop me on the street and they tell me, you look great, or I like what you have on, or gee, you have a great smile. When my flow is disrupted, those are the days when no one seems to even notice that I'm in the room. And so when I started to look at how my flow was interrupted, I just had to go back to situations in my life where my flow was interrupted. One of the things that we talked about is the last step that I love is learning how to just be yourself.
Be yourself.
Because so often I'm trying to be you, I'm trying to be her, I'm trying to be someone else. You can't live anyone else's experience because your situation is different than theirs. I never look at another person and think, wow, I would really like to be them. And that was a lesson that I had to learn, and I learned that when I was 25. There was a guy at work. He dressed well, and his hair moved the right way. Everybody loved him, and he just had this personality that I just so admired. And I thought at that time, gee, I wish I could be just like him, or I wanted to be just like him. And one day, he came to work, and he found out that he had cancer, and within 6 weeks, he left here.
My goodness.
And I thought I spent my whole years and years of time watching this guy at work, envying him, but I got more time. And then I realized that time is the most important thing that we get. And people, when they say, oh, I'm bored. When someone says they're bored, I want to punch them in the throat.
Hard.
Because you're hard, right? Because what is bored? Bored suggests that you're not living. You're not taking it by the rings and just saying, okay, I'm gonna ride this.
Right, right.
Because every single day, I find a reason to grow.
Right.
And we have to. We have to find ways and reasons to grow. And even if I have a bad day, when I have the worst day, I'll say, this is a day I don't want to experience again, so how can I not experience this?
That's good.
So instead of groveling in, oh, this happened and I'm so mad and I'm just going to go, people who go and sit in a corner and just be mad. Do you know, because that could be, if this was the last 3 hours of your life, would you want to be mad?
That's good.
I don't.
Say that again.
If that was the last 3 hours of your life, would you want, I don't want to be mad. I don't want to be sitting around, when people have relationship problems and they're sitting there worrying about what their spouse does. I always say, no one can do to you what you don't allow them to do. So if your spouse is cheating, that's their spirit. That's not your spirit. So if that's on their spirit, I'm going to allow that to be on your spirit. I can't do anything about it. I can't change it. All I can do is trust.
Right.
So when I say I love you, I drop all of the other stuff and I say I trust. And I let trust flow us through this relationship. And then if I find that the flow is disrupted and there are things, we either need to talk about it, figure out how to fix it, or split up and leave.
Right.
Because the worst situation for people, and I've seen it way too many times, is they take it and stay. But taking it and staying, you can't grow in anger.
And you're unhappy.
And you're unhappy. Well, once faith and trust are gone, there's no relationship.
Yeah.
So either you learn how to drop it and learn a new road to faith, a new road to trust, because there are more roads.
Yeah, how do you rebuild trust when it has been broken? What advice would you give someone to rebuild that? And when would you know if the person really was going to attempt to do that?
Okay, for me, I would say, Dawn, we've had this bump in the road. and this is how I feel about it.
Right.
So this is how your actions made me feel.
Okay.
And then I'm going to have to admit to you that that's how I allowed it to make me feel.
Okay.
Now I'm going to say, I don't want to feel this way, and I refuse to live this way. So we need to build another road to learn trust and faith. And if it's that we have to separate for a while, if it's that we have to be together all the time, if it's I have to read your email and you read my email, if
Right.
I have to check your cell phone, I don't want to check your cell phone. I really don't want to do that.
Right.
But if you put me in a place of distrust, you're going to have to come back and help me rebuild trust.
Right.
Trust can be rebuilt, but it's a two-way street.
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
So
Most of the time, the person who broke the trust feels angry because they have to work hard to restore it. But that also tells you whether or not that person is really vested, doesn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
because if I take the time,
Right.
then I'm vested. If I say, "Oh, you're out of your mind," I'm not doing that.
Right.
When I continue the lie, because one of the steps is being honest with yourself, because that's where honesty starts. You have to go in there, and I know there are times I do things I wish I hadn't done, but I have to go back in and say, Carl, okay, you've already done it now. Now, in all truth, how can you heal this? In all truth, can I go in and sometimes I just have to go down and sit and talk to God and say, God, I did this. I know this isn't what I wanted to do, but this is the way it
Yeah.
went. Please help me find a way to be better.
That's good.
And I'm gonna work with you, because a lot of people, they say, oh, I'm gonna give it to God, and they throw it. God, it doesn't have hands. We're His hands.
Right,
So
right.
when you say I'm giving it to God, that means I'm gonna take my hands and I'm gonna mold it and I'm gonna work with it.
Right, right.
So I believe that's why I like the flow of the 21 steps. Is because it really it teaches you about being giving, about being forgiving, about being loving, learning how to love at a higher level, and love has to be without condition. And when you say, I love you unless you, or I love you as long as you, you're not loving that person.
And we're saying that whether we verbally say it or not. We're
Right.
doing it based on the relationship that we have with that person and how they're affecting us, how they make us feel. And that kind of determines how we feel about them a lot of times. But we can't. You're telling us we can't do that.
Yeah, well, because you said how people make you feel. People can't make you feel any way.
You
it's
allow it.
how you allow
Okay.
people to make you feel.
Okay.
And that's all about just saying, hey, wait a minute, stop, enough. And just pausing that person.
Right, right.
We're having a great conversation here, but we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to be right back. Don't go anywhere. Number 2, be faithful. Affirmation. I am connected with a higher power and believe I am supported 100%.
Excellent.
So we're having fun?
We are having fun. I want to talk about the pause thing you do. I love that. You've said it 4 times, and each time it guides us, it gets everybody to stop. So you said wait, you said pause. I think that's a good point because we do not, as humans, we react. And even when we're trying to be proactive, we're already trying to fix something before we've discussed it. So I think teaching people how to stop, take a minute. I think you need to hit that really hard because we in a microwave society.
Oh,
if
that's
we could
true,
learn
right.
to do that,
Right.
we would not make some of the rash decisions that we make. I think you really need to hit that. That's good stuff. I said, I'm going to start saying it to the kids. Pause.
Okay.
Let's think about why this is happening right now. That's great.
Okay, so we're back, and we've already been talking, so I'm not even going to cut that because we've had a beautiful conversation. We can't even take a break. But we were talking about taking a pause, and that's what a breath does for you. And that's what I love about yoga
breath.
and Pilates is it taught me to breathe and breathe fully. And most people don't breathe fully. And so what they do is they're always, and that causes you to be on the edge. And so most people live on that edge. And so everything that happens affects them. But when you allow yourself to breathe, pause, stop, things look different. Sometimes, and I've heard people say this, it'll look different in the morning. People jump they rush to judgment, and then they say, well, gee, I'm sorry that I did. Of course you're sorry that you did that because you didn't take time to see what really happened here. And sometimes what seems to happen isn't what actually happened. And it's all about how you take in and how you react to what happened.
Right.
I can be angry, or for example, when I was 15 years old, I lost my best friend. And I had never lost anybody before. She died on a Friday, and my uncle died on a Saturday. So my whole family went to my uncle, of course, and my aunt, and we had a funeral. but no one ever stopped and asked me, how do you feel? So for years, I carried that around with me, for years and years and years, actually up until a week ago. My aunt came to visit, and my mom and my aunt and I were sitting on my mom's bed, and we were talking, just about things in general. And I said, do you remember when, and I brought up the situation, and I said, do you remember when my friend died? I said, did you ever think to ask me if I was okay? And my mother said, I don't remember. I don't remember that happened. So maybe I was so upset that I didn't even stop to tell them, oh, look, this is what happened to me. Oh. So I had never mentioned it. And so I started to go into it, and my aunt looked at me and she said, are you all right now? And I said, apparently I am okay, because I paused all this, I waited all this time to talk about it.
Right, right.
But it was something that I had internalized. I believed I'm not going to carry anything around with me from my childhood, from my young adulthood, because everything that I did, everything that happened, it was for some reason. And I said to you, sometimes you have to reach back into your past.
Yes.
And that's the situation is back there. But you've lived it, it's education, it's stored knowledge.
Right.
But then you have to pull that back into your life as wisdom.
Right, right.
You know, because all of the information we're given.
I need you to say that again.
All the information that we're given, that's knowledge.
Right.
But how do you pull that back into your spirit and use it as wisdom?
Right, right.
And
right.
even learning how to talk to my mom and my aunt like that came from my past, pulled it up and said, you know what? I don't want to leave this earth, or I don't want them to leave this earth without us ever having that conversation.
Right.
So out of breaking down my fear, because I always was afraid to bring up the situation because my aunt lost her husband also. So was I being selfish?
Right.
So for 35 years, I carried that around. And when I had the conversation, I breathed, she breathed, and my mother had a question mark, like, why didn't you ever bring that up to me?
Right, right.
And I was healed in a breath.
In a breath.
In a breath. And it was only because I acknowledged, I stepped out of fear, and I just said, whatever the answer is going to be, if they said we didn't care, whatever the answer was going to be, I was going to be okay with that.
Right,
Because
right.
don't ask a question unless you're ready for the answer. And
Now
so-
that's serious right there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, especially women, relationships, you tend to want to know, but you don't want the emotion that comes with that knowledge. You don't want, you really, so that's a good point. Do not ask the question. Say that again.
Don't ask the question unless you're ready for the answer.
Wow.
And when you're ready for the answer suggests that this is what reality is for me today. This is what reality is for you. Now we're going to sit back and we're going to talk about what does it mean to both of us.
Right.
But I have to be ready for that answer.
Okay.
When someone asks you, do you love me? Love is so many different things. But is love the thing that you think it is? Or how do you view love? How do I view love? If they're different, then I think you're not loving me because you're not loving me the way that I think I need or I want or need.
Right.
And you're giving me what you have.
Right.
But if I don't stop and just ask you, why don't you do this? Why don't you say that? Do you like this or not like this? Some people just hold. And when you're withholding things, all you're doing actually is you're blocking communication, because communication stops when I stop telling you what I think, want, or need.
Exactly.
So you have to identify what you want, and then you have to verbalize what you need.
Okay.
Okay. Because I can say, I want $1 million, but what do I need to do to make $1 million?
Okay.
Some people, you can be a prostitute, you can steal money from other people, or you can work really hard for it.
Right.
So or you can win the lottery. There are a million ways to get $1 million, but for me, the most important thing in life is that I live authentically, and I help, by me living authentically, I help other people live authentically, because my example to the world is, this is Carl, no joke, no lie, no pretense, and I can't be afraid of what you're going to think of me, because if I show you another face and you like that face, that's not me.
Right.
So you don't like me.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like what I showed you, but you do not like me.
Yeah.
So a lot of this sounds like choices, a choice to be forgiving, a choice. Talk about choosing the right thing or making up your mind to really move forward.
I think what I did first is I wrote a poem. It's called the Code of Honor, and I realized what I needed to do to heal. This is what I need to do to be clear, to grow further. So I started writing this poem about the things that I needed to do, to dream wide awake in color was one of my very favorite ones, because people dream in black and white and then they wonder why they don't get color.
Right.
You know,
right.
but if you want something, you've got to see it, you've got to feel it, you've got to smell it.
Right.
When I wanted to lose weight, I took a picture of myself and I cut the head off, and I got a fat body and a skinny body, and I put them both on the refrigerator. And I kept moving my head back and forth to how I felt that day. And I kept telling myself that I want to spend more time on the skinny body
Right,
than
right.
I want on the fat body. So eating was a choice. Exercise was a choice. You don't have to exercise, but then you can't be mad if you don't feel the way you want to feel. One of the things I work on myself is magnificent and powerful. So every morning when I wake up, I take my shower, stand in the mirror naked, and I tell myself, you are magnificent, you are powerful, and I repeat that until I feel that way. And sometimes I'm there for a half an hour. And some days,
Takes a little longer some days.
But when I leave my space empowered, I can empower others.
Right.
If I leave my space in a bad space, and I enter the world from a very negative space, you get in the car and you're yelling at everyone in the other cars, and they can't hear you. So or you're messing up with your own central nervous system. I love people that do that. They get in the car and they become a whole different person. They're nice and they're kind, and they get in the car and they're screaming and they're yelling and
Road
beeping their
rage.
horn. That's what's inside of you. Cut it off. Pause. That's what the pause does.
Pause, the pause.
Pause, breathe. Because realize that all that is doing is making me upset. So when I'm in the car and I'm screaming obscenities and beeping my horn, all that's doing is affecting my own central nervous system. And it's not doing me any favors.
Right.
So when that pause suggests that maybe I don't like what's going on the road.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be the best driver I can be,
Okay.
so that I can show and lead by example. A lot of parents forget about that. They want their kids to do this, but they're not showing and leading with example.
Right.
And we have to be our very best example of ourselves.
Right.
Because if I want to make the world a better place, and that is my goal. Every day when I wake up, my goal, I say, is I want to make the world a better place. How am I going to do that today? And if it's with my exercise class, or if it's learning a new exercise, or learning a new quote. I love to put quotes on my Facebook page, because sometimes things just affect me. And then when they affect me, I say, let me share this, because maybe somebody else needs to hear that. Yesterday on my Facebook, I shared, it was a story about a little boy who was trying to move a stone. And his father was watching him struggle trying to move this stone. And the father finally walked over to him and he said, have you done everything in your power to move that stone? And the little boy was frustrated, and he said, yes, I have. And the father said, no, you haven't, because you haven't asked me to help.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And so, something that simple.
Right.
Sometimes you just need to ask someone else for help.
Right.
Don't get so self-involved that you think that everything that's happening inside of you is all about you. Drop the ego. So that's one of the most important messages I could give you today.
Right.
Drop the ego and just
Yeah.
ask for help, because help is there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned your weight loss journey. And talk about that a little bit. Did you learn some of the 21 steps during that journey, or?
I think during the journey of losing the weight, no, be honest. I had a whole lot of hate, resentment. I hated my body. After
Okay.
I learned that nothing changes out of hate. So what I had to learn how to do is love my body and say, I love my body and accept it as it is today, but I intend to make it better. So my intention. So I put my intention on making it better and taking my thought out of hate.
Okay.
One of the things I talked about my clients, when someone comes to me and they overweight, I say, touch yourself. Because a lot of times, your body just needs to be touched, everywhere. Where don't, I'm not supposed to touch my microphone. Where don't you feel good? And, if I hate my thighs.
Or your knees, or.
I hate my thighs. Touch them and say, thighs, I love you, and I'm going to help you be better. I'm
Okay.
going to work with you. Talk to yourself. Allow yourself to have that self-talk, that positive self-talk. Because negative self-talk, that's a dime a dozen.
Right.
Positive self-talk, that's a learned process.
Right, right. That's awesome. So in closing, why don't you tell us what you want people to get out of the book? Because this has been a journey for you, a great one, and you have some positive, encouraging tools in there. What would you like them to walk away with?
I would like people to walk away with, most importantly, being their authentic self. because we live our supposed selves, our assumed selves. You know, I assume that because I look this way, everyone thinks I'm this way. My mother thinks I'm this person, and my teacher thought I was that person.
That's good.
Drop all of it and stop and just break it down. Who are you really? And then find a way to share that expression with the world. Because until you are yourself, you cannot contribute to the world. So I would say the biggest lesson in the book is just learning how to love yourself, accept yourself, and then taking that loved, accept self out into the world and helping other people find their way.
Would you have any advice about that transition? If they're in a negative place and they're saying, okay, I saw this show, I'm going to get this book, I'm going to buy one for everyone in my house. But when they do that, what would you tell them initially to do to just change their mindset from being negative? Would you tell them to follow the 21 days, do one a day? You were mentioning before to do one and then add the other, something like that.
So what I would say is try one a day and notice what's going on.
Okay.
Being loving, and notice every single time you've done something out of love and every time you've done something out of not being so loving.
Okay.
Note it.
Okay.
Take notes and notice how many times how your heart feels when you do the loving thing and how your spirit feels when you do the negative thing.
Okay.
And once you start, it's such an easy process, because once you start to look at it and say, you know, when I'm flowing in love, I feel this way. We know when you first fall in love, what that feels like when you're floating on that cloud. You can always live there.
Right.
But it's not automatic. It's a little bit of work.
Right.
But wouldn't you want to work to stay on that cloud? So I just tell people that I really believe that beauty, excellence, all of that lives in every single one of us. Find where you're beautiful. Find where you're excellent. Don't try to be somebody else. The only way you can get through this is learn how to be your best self.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, Dawn, thank you so much for being here. This has been one of the easiest shows I've ever done.
I enjoy talking to you. I'm very excited about people getting a chance to transform, to change, and have tools to do it, something they can follow. And real quickly, I don't know if you want to edit this back out, or I'm sorry I just said that, but you were talking about 21 days forming a habit or doing something.
It takes 21 days to form a habit.
Okay.
So what you do with the 21 steps is you start with one a day. We'll take you through the first 21 days. You've already started the habit of noticing.
Okay.
Now the next step, do 3 a day.
Okay.
And then see how that makes you feel. Now I'm doing 3 a day. Now I've gone through my next 21 days. I've repeated everything 3 times.
Oh, nice.
So now it just starts to build into my psyche. So I know for myself, because I know the steps so well, there will be days when I go to do something and I'll know I'm not prepared, and I'll go, darn, it's one of the steps in the book is being prepared. So when I catch myself doing that, I go back and I reread that page.
Good.
And I say, okay, today my focus, my intention is going to be being prepared. Today my intention is going to be being loving. Today my intention is where can I go inside of myself and forgive?
That's awesome.
So when you start to think that way, then it becomes automatic. So the goal is to make that become automatic for you.
That's awesome.
We could talk all day, couldn't we?
I know, we could. I wanted to get that point in there because a lot of times people would do something for a couple of days or when they're excited about it and then they stop.
Right.
So they need that process for the transformation to take root and be solidified.
And that's what I like about the book. It's small little chunks, you know. So it's not a whole bunch to read, just little chunks, just a little brief paragraph for your day, and then you flow through.
Right, awesome. I'm so glad you invited me here.
Yeah.
It was awesome interviewing you.
It's been absolutely wonderful meeting you, knowing you, and I'm so looking forward to getting this book out into the world. Thank you so much for joining us. Dawn, thank you for being here, and I'm sure she'll be back. We'll talk to you very soon.